ladies and gentlemen, let's officially introduce you. We've been hanging out. We've been laying in wait, but she is here. You know her from so many things, of course, based on the slew of questions that we got from you guys ahead of time. Still known and beloved so much from Full and Fuller House. But also so many other things you've been involved in. We're going to talk about a bunch of them here today. Jodie Sweetin is here. Jodie.
Hi, you guys. As I'm
was-
getting a drink of water, I was like, oh, let me get a sip of water before he introduces me and I have to speak. So, hi, guys.
We'll rehearse that better next time.
Yeah.
So
Next
you
time.
can get your full gulp in.
The whole intro is going to go much smoother next time, but that's okay.
Well, look, we're so happy to have you here. Everyone is excited. And I can tell you that by the fact that everyone who logged in at the beginning of this is still here. We're growing and growing.
I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. I promise.
I gotta ask
by technical difficulties all the time.
I hear you. Welcome to my life as well. But I want to ask you right off the bat, because this is, I mean, we talk about being, sieged by this, wonderfully intimate group of people who are able to, in the middle of the day, come here and join us for this live conversation. But we're also talking, and we mentioned it before you hopped on, that 90s Con is around the corner.
Yes.
A huge 90s convention, pop culture convention in Hartford, Connecticut. You're going to be a part of it this year. What is your comfort level with this sort of thing? Because it's not every day that you have. I mean, I feel like I'd be having nightmares, like anxiety attacks about just.
I love going out and meeting fans. I mean, Full House has fans that have been watching the show for 35 years. So it's pretty crazy to think that, there are generations of people who've grown up with it. So I love going out to stuff like this. I am really fortunate that I get to do a lot of other things in my career. So it's kind of nice to come back and get to meet the Full House fans that have been there through the whole thing and see me as a little kid and that now support, what I do as an adult. So I'm looking forward to it. I get to go hang out with my friends and cast members. So it's like, it's going to be a fun weekend away and get to go meet some fans. So It'll be great.
Awesome.
I'm just hoping the weather is decent. You know what I mean? That's what I'm really hoping for.
Yeah. Hartford, Connecticut. I mean, don't look for a tropical weekend, but
well, yeah, no, definitely. I just came from Toronto. I was up there for a month working. So yeah, I've been in the cold.
Gotcha. Well, look, we are going to open this up. We've got, as I said, a slew of questions for you, but also anyone who is on board right now, if you have any comments or any questions for Jodie, we'll try to slide them in as well. Lots of people saying, showing their excitement. I cannot wait to meet this queen at 90s Con. I assume they're talking about you.
I am honored, and I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, look, I mean, we didn't really do a very strong job of making any sort of logical sequence of this crazy amount of questions we got.
That's totally fine. My brain doesn't work in any sort of logical sequence either, so that's totally fine. Oh no, what have I done?
It's cool, but this is. Oh, you're gone. You're here. We have to start with this one because it's just logical, and it comes from Brenda Asbury. How did you get into acting? We never really hear a lot about, the before. So
I mean, there wasn't too much before because I was pretty young. I was about 4 years old when I started getting into the business. I loved performing. I loved dancing. I loved putting on plays. I loved playing pretend. And I wanted to be on TV. I was a pretty bright kid. I was reading at a very young age, and my mom saw that I enjoyed, being on stage, whether it was a dance performance or a little play or something like that. So I started just doing print ads and commercials, and that quickly became a career. And I booked a lot of commercials. I did Sizzler and Oscar Mayer and several others, Fruity Pebbles and a couple cereal commercials and stuff. So yeah, I started working a lot, and then I did a guest appearance on another show that was by the same producers as Full House, which was kind of in development at the time. It wasn't quite a show yet. And I got cast from that one episode of being a guest cast onto Full House. So I really am incredibly grateful for this career trajectory that I've had, which has been I just kind of have wound up in really fortunate places, and I love what I do. So
Yeah.
it's gotten me here.
Awesome. Awesome. Brenda also wants to know, and this is interesting. Did you get to go to regular school at any point during your Full House days, or was it always the tutor on set situation?
No, I did get to go to regular school. I had it worked out with our producers because I lived a little bit outside of like LA proper. It was actually easier for me to get to set a little bit in the afternoons on rehearsal days. And
Hmm.
we only worked 4 days a week. So basically, my schedule was Mondays, we weren't working. So I was at school all day. Tuesdays and Wednesdays were our rehearsal days, so I would go to regular school in the morning, and my mom would pick me up around lunchtime, like 11:45. I'd drive up to LA in the days when you could drive up to LA from Orange County in 45 minutes or an hour.
Hmm.
Uh, that would not happen today. Um, but we would drive up here. I would rehearse in the afternoon, and then the 2 days a week, Thursdays and Fridays, were our like on camera days.
Okay.
Fridays were our live audience days. Those days I would do some schooling on set. So I had kind of a foot in regular school and regular life, and I went to just normal public school, and also had some on-set tutoring. And I think that was, I think, a really great combination for me, and helped me do pretty well in school.
Gotcha. Who on the Full House, and I think we're specifically talking about Full House, but this could extend
Okay.
to Fuller as well. Who is the biggest prankster, would you say, among the regular cast?
Um, I don't know that it was like, well, no, you know what? You know what? Andrea Barber, and it didn't come out until later. Like it really, Fuller House was when she and I would be like pulling pranks. She really pulled a few good pranks on me. I had a few with her too, but that was really when the pranking started. But I'd say probably, I know John and Bob and Dave were like, they were always doing something to each other. They were like, teenage friends, so they were always pranking each other.
Mm.
But a lot of it as a kid, I wasn't quite in on the joke yet. So
They didn't mess with you yet. You had
not
to,
yet, not yet. No.
you had to be old enough to vote first, and then they
Right.
could.
Yeah. Exactly.
Gotcha. um, what was your favorite? This is a broad question, but Daniela Rothschild asks, "What was your favorite experience working on Full House?" That covers a lot of ground, but is
That
there?
covers a lot of ground, but I'd say since that's it's a very broad question, I will give a very broad answer, which has been the family that I have gotten to create from Fuller House, and not just the cast, but the crew as well. There are a lot of people through the years who I still talk to, who are still,
Mm.
big parts of my life that I met when I was a kid on Full House. So I'd say that overall experience of having this big group of wonderful extended family has been the thing that I've enjoyed the most.
I feel like we need, when we post this in post production, we need to edit in the end of episode, like the soft music when
Right, right, yeah, 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 exactly. Some small violins playing.
Yeah, exactly, and like a studio audience awe, because that
Right.
was that was wonderful. Tim Floyd, lots of great questions. We'll see if we can pick a few good ones out of here. When was a time, and of course, we're still very much remembering and celebrating the life and times of Bob Saget.
Mm.
Um, when was the time that Bob made you laugh the most while on set?
Oh gosh, you know what? It wasn't even on set. It was um as adults, and we were on a press tour, and we were all in Japan, in Tokyo, for like 48 hours or less. It was this crazy press tour that we were doing. And and we were all out to dinner. And it was, I don't remember what got us going. I don't know what it was, but I it was one of the hard, like, I just remember us all laughing in this restaurant so hard. And Jeff Franklin, our show's creator, was there too. And it was, we were just like crying laughing, and there were a lot of those times when it was just uncontrollable laughter, but that will always stick out in my head as this like hilarious family vacation moment of us in this Japanese restaurant where there was like 3 other people and we were just laughing hysterically. And yeah, that was one of those good gut laugh kind of moments.
Nice. If you could go back and tell yourself as a child one thing, what would it be?
Um, oh, to just skip to the part where other people's opinions don't matter. Like, just get to that part. Don't waste all the time, you know, when you're young and in your 20s and stuff, and like, and even early 30s, like wasting time on what other people think. It's so much more freeing once you get to the point where you're like, oh, it doesn't. I just have to worry about me.
I
You know,
hear you. That's probably that's probably like 90% of all of, like, I mean, all of us go through that, and
for
we
sure.
all.
And I think kids now even more so are, they're on so much social media and stuff. We're all so worried about sort of the external, but yeah, just skip to the part where you realize it really doesn't matter because that's where the freedom is.
Mm. Cool. From the live chat, John Stamos has a book out this year.
Yes.
Do you think you may put one out in the near future or in the future at all?
I had a book come out in 2009.
Mhm.
And I don't know. Every once in a while I think about writing another one, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know. It's definitely not off the table. We'll put it that way.
Okay. Cool. How was, and this is from Amy, how was Full House, I guess, the experience of acting in Full House versus Fuller House? Obviously, you were in two very different places in your life. Which one was more fun to you? Which one was easier or harder to, just the performing aspect of it, one versus the other?
Um, I think there's kind of pros and cons to both. I mean, when I was a kid on the show, it was, I showed up, I did my thing. I didn't it was I didn't have notes, I didn't have, input. I didn't know, conversations that were going on about production stuff and whatever.
Yeah.
That wasn't really my concern. I was a kid, I showed up, I said my lines, I had my fun, and then that was it.
Mhm.
But with that was having to also balance school, and like you want to be hanging out with the adults and everyone's just kind of, sitting around like gossiping and laughing and having fun, and you've got to go get your schoolwork done, or
Right.
it was like you kind of felt like you were missing out on that stuff. But as an adult, you maybe don't have to go to school in between and you're not worrying about that necessarily, but now you are more worried about the show as a whole. You're having to, take on more of the press stuff. You're having to do a lot more, in notes, and having to really have conversations with writers and producers, and the world. You're more involved in sort of that aspect of the show. So it's different. I love being an adult and having some input and being able to help create stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but it was also a really fun way to grow up. But I think I enjoy being on the production end of it a little bit more.
Cool. Darren wants to know, did you find it harder to be patient with smaller children on set when you no longer were one? Now, we've heard stories, and we actually we had an interview in the archives with Andrea Barber, who
Andrea.
yeah, yes, we went into great detail. I think that was right around the end of Fuller House, and we talked a great
Hmm.
deal about just the whole process of creating a sitcom, but how the animals and the children and
Right.
all that stuff kind of made this a different beast. Did you feel like, as you were becoming a teenager, like, did that become like something that naturally you became less
No,
patient
I
with, or?
No, I was always really actually probably more patient with the younger kids. I naturally gravitated toward the younger kids. I wound up, when I left and went and got my college degree, I was going to be an elementary school teacher. I worked in
Oh.
schools. I worked with younger kids.
Mhm.
My kids would probably be like, "You don't have patience with us," but it's always different when it's your own kids. But no, I had a lot of patience with the kids, and even when we were doing Fuller House, I remember Elias, who played Max on the show,
Mm.
you know, he called me his set mom because I was like, we would have fun and we would have a great time, but he also knew like when it came down to it, I was not letting him get away with anything, and I was like, we're about to work, and you're about to get this done because this is what you came to do, but we had this great relationship, and I to this day I love that kid. But you know, I have patience with kids because I get it. I understand it. You know, I want to go into directing, and I have enjoyed. I got to direct an episode of Fuller House, and I want to. It's a couple Nickelodeon shows that I am hoping to direct that I've shadowed on. That you know, I love working with kids. I know what the experience is of having to balance being a young person, school, a full time job. You know, all that stuff. So I think because I was in that position, I have a lot more empathy and understanding and patience for kids. And but also I have a very high standard. I will say that. I have a very high
Mhm.
standard of expectation because I worked really hard when I was a kid, and I didn't, you know, I showed up and I did my job and I knew what I was supposed to do. And that's, you know, I think what kids in this business are, you know, for better or worse, you're expected to do. So
Yeah.
they I know that there's like I can be like, okay, this is show up and do your job, but also like we'll have fun, and you know, I
Nice.
know you're tired, but we got this.
Cool. Um, Mishka would like to know, what were some of the major struggles on set as a child star? So we talked about sort of the back and forth of the schoolwork or whatever, but was there any other specific challenges just based on the fact that you were a kid that you could speak on from that perspective?
I think like you know, I remember as a kid the things that that upset me were like missing school field trips,
Hmm.
or you know, like everybody going to science sixth grade science camp, and I missed out, but I missed out because we were shooting in Walt Disney World for 2 weeks, so like it was a really obnoxious, you know what I mean, like, oh, my mom was like, you need to shut up because you're gonna like realize what you're crying about. But it
Right.
was, what I was sad about was the missing of being the normal kid,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
having that shared experience with everyone else, because I was always sort of on the outside.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like I didn't care where they were going or where I was going. I just knew that I wanted to have that experience with them because it would
Mhm.
be in the yearbook and it would be, you know, a big thing they don't talk about, and I wouldn't be there. So I think that was probably the hardest part about being a kid, was feeling like you got all these wonderful opportunities and you were I was always so grateful for them, and I loved I mean, I got to go to some amazing, incredible places and do and meet some incredible people.
Yeah.
Like I just I got to really live this huge full life as a kid, but there are things that you don't get back, which is just sort of the everyday childhood stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that sometimes you miss a little bit.
Did you feel like that kind of change of life when Full House came to an end, right? And
Hmm.
now you're sort of moving away from that kind of a bubble, so to speak, just because of,
Hmm.
the responsibilities and everything. Was that challenging to adapt to that, like, socially? Like, to be able to just kind of deal with the real world in a different way than you'd been programmed to for all those years?
No, because I wasn't really programmed to deal with my parents are very normal people. Like I said, I grew up outside of LA. I didn't grow up in like with a lot of. I mean, I had friends that were in the business, but most of the people that I spent my time with on weekends and like, you know, in my life, outside of work, were just normal, regular kids and regular families.
Mm,
So I think in a sense, for me, I've always like sometimes coming into the world of like this the glamorous Hollywood stuff feels very foreign to me. It's not my, you know, it's not who I am naturally.
yeah,
I was fortunate that I had a pretty normal existence as a kid growing up.
mm,
Um, and so, you know, it was a weird adjustment going back and forth. But to me, I just looked at what I did as like this job that I went and did, and it was fun. And then I came and was a kid, you know.
yeah. Is it and this is a question for me, but it's interesting just to have so many people asking you so many questions about the work that you did as a kid, which is now decades ago.
Right.
And you compare that to a teenager who has a part-time job as a teenager, and then you're asking somebody to talk about and remember little details about things that you did so long
Right.
ago. Is it sometimes, does it feel like the rest of the world remembers that time better than you do because
Oh,
you lived
I'm
it and they're
sure.
still watching it, right?
That's the thing is like everyone's pay. I mean, I never watched Full House. I don't know. That wasn't. I never watched
Literally?
Fuller House. I didn't. Yeah, like I didn't. That's not my style of show that I watch. It was. I didn't really care about being on TV. I didn't care about seeing myself. I still don't watch anything that I do really, just because it's weird. And so I yeah, I don't know. I guess it for me it was like I never thought it was like that big of a deal for me. It never really affected like who I am as a person.
Mhm.
Um yeah, I don't know. I know that there are a lot of people out there who find it weird to talk about things that they did as a kid, and I remember as best I can, but people kind of ask the same questions through the years and want to know the same things, and
Yeah.
and as I've gotten older, I definitely it's nice to have other parts of my career to focus on, that I that are a little more recent, that I remember a little bit better, but it's also a testament to how successful the show was, that people love hearing about it, and
Yeah.
that many people still know about it even today.
Oh man, we got to fill you in. You did some good stuff back then. Don't worry, we as a world will catch you up at some point through the power of constant questioning and badgering. That's what we
Right.
do. Um, Tim would also like to know, this is kind of out of left field, but what were your favorite bands growing up in the 90s specifically?
Oh, favorite bands. I was a big Rage Against the Machine fan, still am. Love some Tom Morello.
Mm.
I listened to a lot of 90s hip hop. I also was very much into the 90s like girl rock of, Fiona Apple and all that. But that was like my Cranberries, very 90s hip hop and alt rock sort of vibe. Yeah.
Cool.
And
Cool.
basically, if MTV was playing it, and in the early 90s, like MTV actually was playing it, but if
Yeah.
they were playing it, then that was like what I was very much into. So,
Nice. We'll do a 180 here because the next question is, do you have any memories of meeting rock and roll legends Little Richard and the Beach Boys, who both appeared on the original Full House?
yes, yes, I do actually. The Beach Boys have always been around because John has played with them forever. So those guys were always there, and they did several episodes of the show and stuff. And they've always been friends with Jeff Franklin, the show's creator. So I see them a lot at birthday parties and events and things like that throughout the years.
Mhm.
And Little Richard, I do remember when he was on, and I remember I was standing next to him, and he finished playing the piano and went like that, and accidentally backhanded me and felt so bad.
Oh man.
So yeah, so I do have a story about accidentally being backhanded by Little Richard at age 10, which is pretty unique. So there's that.
Did you know who he was? Because it
Oh
felt
yeah,
like
I was a huge like 50s 60s rock and roll fan at the
you
time. Like
were.
that was yeah. I listened to a lot of oldies as a kid.
I mean, I don't have a list of like other guest stars, but I feel like Full House, there was like this very concerted effort to bring in guest stars and to just make pop culture jokes that were like about personalities from the 50s and 60s and 70s. Like,
Well, I think that was very largely informed by our writers and who their idols were as kids. You know what
yeah.
I mean, as young people, and that was kind of where a lot of it came from. And also, they were musicians and they were fans of music, so that was always kind of the tie-in too.
Do you remember any other standout for both shows? I'm thinking, Lisa Loeb on Fuller House was
Oh my
fun.
gosh, that was actually so I was a Lisa Loeb fan as a kid in the 90s.
Mhm.
And so getting to sing with her on the show and actually do something with her was, I remember I leaned over to her at one point and I was like, I just have to tell you that like 90s teenage 15-year-old me is totally freaking out right now. So I'd say that was really fun. Gosh, having Max and Val Schmerkovsky from Dancing with the Stars, who are just lovely humans, that was fun to have them on.
Mm.
We had a lot of, we had a lot of great guest stars throughout the years.
New Kids on the Block.
New Kids on the Block, for sure. I know Candace and Andrea were huge New Kids fans, so that was always a very big deal for them.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the place to be.
Yeah.
Um, what Jennifer would like to know, what was it like going from a childhood star to being on a Hallmark movie as an adult? And I think what she's speaking about more generally is just kind of what you talked about before, sort of that shift to different kinds of projects as you
Yeah.
got older. Was that like, did you ever have a plan walking away from the original Full House? Now I'm going to be involved in these different kinds of projects going, or was it just
I didn't, when Full House ended when I was young, I mean, I was like 13, 14. I was just kind of like, let's just, whatever, let's see what happens. And now I like that I've come back into the business. I mean, I had walked away and I got my degree. I had worked in other areas. I had worked in drug and alcohol treatment. I had worked, being a director of operations and stuff. I had kind of stepped away from the business a little bit and then came back when Fuller House came to be and all of these other opportunities presented themselves, which have been things I've, always wanted to do and sort of be able to explore my career in other ways. And Hallmark was and Lifetime movies and those movies of the week have been a really fun next step. And now I'm looking into directing some, and I'm working on some other scripts and writing some things. I'm doing some stand-up comedy, so it's been fun to be able to go from what I was known as a kid to use that as an adult to find that platform again, and then be able to go off and do kind of a bunch of different artistic, fun, creative things.
cool? Somebody from the chat would like to know, do you think you would do any more Hallmark movies?
I am actually. I was in Toronto and I just completed a Hallmark movie. It is not a Christmas movie, and it is actually not. It's a Hallmark mystery movie.
Mm,
So it's got some whodunit and some murder and some mystery to it. So that was really fun. That should be out this spring, and I will be posting a lot about that. But yeah, I like doing those. Hopefully, I'll get to do a mystery series. Have to do a few movies as the same character,
mm.
and start directing some, and yeah, see where that takes me.
Awesome, awesome. What was it like working with Andrew Walker on the Hallmark Channel?
Andrew was such a doll. I have been really fortunate in my co-stars, and Andrew was one of the first co-stars I had in some Hallmark movies, and he was just so sweet and kind, and we had a really really fun time. We kind of played pranks on each other. I seem to remember there being some ridiculous Christmas ornament that we would put in random places on set, and like just as a joke that we would like have it sent to the other person's room, or
Like
like
the elf
have
on
it,
the
yeah.
shelf? It was
Yeah,
the elf
sort
on
of
the
like,
shelf?
yeah, it was like some ridiculous ornament. It was a pickle ornament that was on the tree, and it was just hilarious. And so that was like that became the joke on set, was we would just Key and I would find ridiculous ways to have that ornament sent back and forth to each other, either on set or at a dinner. Room service came up one time and there was the ornament on a tray, like just really funny stuff. So I had a great time with him.
Awesome. We spoke about him before, but for the record, somebody would like to know just what was it like? What was the experience like of working with Bob Saget?
Oh, Bob was one of the funniest, kindest, most wonderfully neurotic people that you would ever meet. And I've say nothing bad against him. Everyone who knew him, he knew he would say it about himself. I loved Bob so much, and he just had a warmth when he was in the room that was. I'm really fortunate that I got to count him among my extended family, and that I got to spend as much time with him as I did, and that I got to have him around, as a young person. Like I said, I've been moving more into comedy and stand-up comedy and writing comedy and stuff these days. And
Mm.
so much of my comedy has been informed by him, and also informed by his confidence in me. He used to tell me that, he was like, you have one of the best senses of timing of any person I'd ever met when you were 5 years old. He said, you always have been able to do comedy. And so knowing that and having so much love and respect for him, even now, when I go do shows at the Comedy Room, I'm just like, all right, Bob, You said I could do this, so I'm gonna go and try it out. So
He's your Mr. Miyagi, you know.
yes, exactly.
Were you able to tell the twins apart? I think we're talking about the twins who had
Yeah,
played
Ashley, Mary,
Nikki and
Kate, for
Alex.
sure. Yeah, Ashley, Mary, Kate, I could totally
Oh,
tell apart. Blake and Dylan, I could tell apart.
mhm.
They were Ashley, Mary, Kate were fraternal twins. So to me, I could just tell by the way they walked. I mean, I didn't even have to see their face. I knew who it was. But they were like my little sisters. So I grew up with them from the time they were babies. So I was pretty familiar.
Great, great. Um, what was it like on Dancing with the What was that experience like for you?
Oh, Dancing with the Stars was hard work. It was grueling and exhausting, but I had the best partner I could have asked for. Kyo Motsepe was my partner, and he and I just became such wonderful, dear friends out of it. And he pushed me when I needed to be pushed, but also like didn't overwhelm me to the point where I would crack and feel like I couldn't do it. It was just it was a really great experience. I loved it, but it was one of the hardest things that I've ever done. It was like going from 0 to 100 overnight, as
Mm,
far as being like a professional dancer. And
yeah,
I love dancing, so I was really committed to it, and I wanted to do it as much as I could. So it was 7 days a week for months.
yeah, yeah. Somebody actually had already submitted a question asking about whether you had a genuine love for dance based on, I guess, the fact that,
Ah,
young Stephanie did some
yes.
dancing.
Yeah, no, they incorporated that because I could dance as a kid and because it was one of the things that I loved to do that I was good at. It was
Yeah.
They were like, "Well, let's put it in, for the character, it'll be something fun that we can draw on, that they could write storylines about and that they knew I would enjoy and be good at." So,
Cool. Cool. We're gonna do a few more here,
yeah.
if that's cool with you. Cool.
Yeah,
They just keep coming in, Jody.
great.
Get used to it. This is like a virtual version of what you're gonna be expecting at 90s Con, a line that's
Right?
just
I know, yes, it's gonna
never.
be a lot of fun.
Would you consider starring in your own sitcom?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to star in my own sitcom. I would love to I'd love to be a part of something like that. I'd love to be able to help write and create something like that. And it's a goal that I have for myself. So, it's nothing is off the table, like I always say. We'll see. But that, at some point I would really, really like to do that. I love sitcoms. I think they're kind of making a resurgence right now. We saw
Mhm.
them go away for a while. And I think people are looking for something kind of familiar, and there's been more multicam sitcoms coming back. So not only would I like to star in one, but I definitely want to direct one too. So all of that will be coming up. Fingers
Cool.
crossed.
Did you have fun remaking the car in the kitchen scene in Fuller House, mimicking what had happened in the original Full House? You
I
got to drive a
did.
car through a kitchen again.
I did, and this time I was a little bit more involved on the stunt end of it, and I wound up hurting myself, of course.
Really?
I mean, I didn't say anything. Not terribly, not terribly. Before workers' comp or someone files a lawsuit or something. But what they did was for as a kid, there was a stunt drive. I was nowhere near anything when it happened. I watched it all backstage.
Uh,
As an adult, they wanted to get more of my face as the car was moving back. So they had me in the driver's seat. Now the car is mounted by gigantic chains to a plate in that's welded into the stage floor. Like there's no chance of anything happening. And I was going like maybe 8, 12 feet, something. But they wanted it to really accelerate. So I stomped on the gas. But when you've
mm,
only got about 10 feet of, and it was an old car, so you really had to kind of gun it. I definitely, with no, headrest and an old car, felt that in my low back and my neck
mm.
the next day. And everyone was like, okay, one time, that was it. We're not doing that anymore. And I was like, yep, that's great. All right, we're done. So yeah, but it was
Nice,
fun.
nice.
It was fun. I was like a little bit of stunt work, something minor. Not,
A
I'm no
little.
Tom Cruise or anything. I'm no Tom Cruise, but something like that where it's a little bit fun.
That's a T-shirt right there. I always like a little bit of stunt work.
Yeah,
That's like
yeah,
something.
just a little, like a little bit. I had some in my new mystery movie. I got to do a couple of fun little like tosses and falls and, smashing of fake glass and stuff like that. So, yeah,
Cool.
nothing too dangerous, but
Um, quickly, and we
yes.
haven't talked about him at all, so I want to hit on it. What was it like working with Joey Gladstone, Dave Coulier?
Dave, I love Dave. I'm actually really excited to see him at 90s Con. He has moved to Michigan, so I don't get to see him as often as I used to. I was at his house pretty often. He would have a lot of barbecues and get-togethers, and we lived relatively close.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun to see Dave. He is one of the funniest people that I know, and so I'm sure it will be nonstop laughs as it always has been. But Dave, yeah, Dave and I really in my adult life I really got to know him better, and I'm good friends with his wife Melissa, and he's a really wonderful human being, also kind of very down to earth normal guy, um and I just working with him and Bob was really hard as a kid though, because they were always laughing and screwing around, and then I would get laughing, and it was really hard for me as a kid to like pull it back together. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Gotcha. Would you? Well, we already talked about kind of the experience of Full House versus Fuller House. Would you say they're asking, which one would you look back on and say was the most fun? But it feels like you kind of had a lot of fun in different ways on both of them.
Yeah, I'd say they're both equal. I mean, in a sense, it was fun as a kid because it was, like I said, a little more carefree as far as like responsibility wise. But there was the school aspect to it. But as an adult, like I mean, I got to have so much fun. I loved being a part of that, and also being adult and coming back to revisit something that you did as a kid, and then getting to have that adult version experience that you kind of always hoped for. Like that was pretty cool.
Nice. All right, we got one more question from the chat,
All
and then we're
right.
gonna do our finale question, if you will.
Okay.
But did you ever meet the singer of the theme song? I assume we're talking about the original theme song. Did you ever meet the person who sang
Oh
it?
yeah, yeah. Yes, the person who sang it actually is they have written Jesse Bennett. Uh, they have. Oh my gosh, Jesse and Bennett have written almost all of the music from Full House and Fuller House. Every time there was like an original song, all of Steph's songs. But in Fuller House, they had Carly Rae Jepsen sing the theme song. They actually had me record a version of it, and then they
Oh.
had her record a version of it, and I was like, it's Carly Rae Jepsen, you guys, like it's fine. Yeah, that's I have not met Carly Rae Jepsen, but I have met Butch Walker, her producer and stuff. So yeah, there's definitely some connections in there in the music world.
Nice. Okay. Final question. We like to ask this for many of our guests here on the
All
show.
right.
And we've talked a lot about a lot of the things you want to do in the future, the things you're considering, the things you'd like to kind of go in different directions. What's something maybe a little more out there, something a little more out of the box that you feel you'd like to put on a list of someday I want to do that?
Oh man. I think someday I might now, someday I think I'm gonna do a one woman show, but not till I'm like a little bit older. But I've had a lot of friends and a lot of friends in theater tell me I have some pretty interesting stories to tell.
Hmm.
So maybe at some point when I'm an old lady and I decide to, take my one woman show on the road to off Broadway and write about all the things that I haven't written about yet, then maybe that'll be my end, my finale.
Nice. We look forward to it. We look forward to everything, including, of
Great.
course, seeing you at 90s Con. We look forward to, everything else. I know that you're doing comedy, as you said, regularly. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you wanted to promote or plug? Any
Yeah,
specific?
on this Saturday, March 11th, at the Comedy Store, I have a show upstairs in the belly room called Family Dinner. I've got some great comedians joining me for that. Mike Binder, Rob Hayes, and Vanessa Guerrero. That's something that we're doing we're going to try to start doing on a semi-regular basis at the Comedy Store. I'm also doing stand-up show with my friend Jeremiah Wonders on Tuesday night at the Comedy Store. I've got speaking event in Houston in April, and 90s Con, of course, March 17th through 20th in Hartford, Connecticut. So a lot of fun things coming up.
Nice. As always, thank you
Great.
for being on the show. Thank you guys for joining us.
Absolutely, and my apologies for being late.
No, hey, it's cool.
Glad
Thank
we
you
got
for
it all together.
We did. It was great. Thank
Perfect.
you all for joining us. If you haven't,
Absolutely.
if you caught this in the middle, if you want to watch the whole thing, it's going to be available on demand for you right here on the Facebook channel, just moments after we wrap up here. So, share it. Have all your friends join the group as well. And also check out the YouTube page. You can see the address right under my name. And thank you for joining us here, 90s to now. Thanks,
Great.
Jodie.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye, guys.